Why don't we get started then? Everyone, sorry. Let me get my announcement out of the way first. Announcement is made that adequate notice of this meeting has been given and is being conducted in accordance with NJSA 10:4-6 et sec of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. Haley, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. DeZic?
Here.
Mr. Mealy?
Here.
Chairman Von Aiken?
Here.
Also present, we have our board planner, Mr. Weiser,
Hello.
our board engineer, Mr. Canjiano,
Yep.
and our board attorney, Mr. Lagana.
Here. All right, very good. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, this meeting is open to the general public. Seeing no one else present, I will move on to the agenda. Application number 22.528. Is the applicant present? All right, please come forward.
Chairman, members, for the record, Larry Cowan on behalf of the applicant. Relatively simple application, a little bit of an odd one, Mr. Chairman, because the net change here is effectively zero. What I'd like to do is describe what brings us here this evening, what we hope to do, and then introduce you to our one and only professional, should you have any questions, Mr. John Rick, who's our surveyor of record. So this application before the board is technically, under the eyes of Title 40, can't come out to a minor subdivision because it is a lot line adjustment. The impetus and genesis of this is when the applicant sold one of the abutting properties, one of the properties which is subject to this application, lot 54. It was, a scrivener's error was identified in the surveying. Their surveying, the buyer, did not match the survey of the seller. And we endeavored and agreed as part of that sale to correct this in the township records. On paper it exists, in title work it exists. We know where the lot line is, but in the township records, it's off by a few feet. I think it's about an 8-foot strip, it's off in the back. So we undertook to have corrected surveying done. Mr. Rick prepared the survey, he's here this evening. When he prepared it, the entire back of the property, because our client owns a lot of property, he used to own a pretty decent assemblage of land with a more ambitious development in mind that never came to fruition. Now he's slowly selling it off to homeowners. We realized that the scrivener's error goes across the entirety of the back of our property, cutting across two other properties behind us, lots 54 and 76. It's their land effectively today, but on the township records, it still shows as our land. This is a correction just so the world, the township, can recognize that it is their land. It's an 8-foot strip. We are not giving away, it's theirs effectively, but the township is not going to recognize that we're giving them, the abutting property owners, that 8-foot strip throughout the back of the property. There's no development proposed, there's no new lots proposed, there's no new setback deficiencies proposed, there's no non-conforming coverage proposed, nothing like that. It's just an even swath of land that was ours on paper, on some paper. In reality is theirs, we're giving it to them. And this is the corrective effort that is required precedent to us actually creating a new deed with a new meets and bounds description filed with county clerk's office. That is the entirety of what we're here for this evening, Mr. Chair and members.
Okay, and based on what you've just addressed, it sounds like all of the owners are okay with this
They are,
moving
in fact,
forward?
one requested it, and the other I spoke to on Saturday, and at first I think he thought he was getting land, he thought he was getting a notice from the township of land being taken from him. Notice was actually gratuitous, notice was not required for a conforming minor site plan. I did it just out of habit and said, why not, belt and suspenders. Once I explained to Mr. Johansson, I said, you're actually getting land. I said, I'm happy to put it off. If you want to have your attorney call me or anything. No, please proceed. An email I forwarded to Nora, and again, it's a notice-free application. He would have known about it.
Okay.
Here to correct the error. But once he realized he was getting 1,800 square feet of land, it was all okay pretty quickly within the hour on Saturday afternoon. So.
Okay, very good. Let me turn to our planner in case there are any issues of completeness.
Yeah, I've got a couple of issues here based on applicant's submission that I'm just gonna run through the board. We made some recommendations. I don't think the applicant, at least, if the applicant, has, addressed those requests, we never got them. So I'm going to just go through them. They're all very minor. If the board wishes to, do what they want to do with it, it's certainly up to you.
Okay.
So we have a report, pardon me, dated July 5th, 2022. And on page 2, Appendix A requires item number 7, a statement from the property owners granting permission for the board and its experts to enter the property. The applicant had this NA. We requested that it be submitted. I don't know how important that is given this particular point in time. There are requirements regarding DEP documentation that were not submitted. The applicant indicated that they were not applicable. We do not disagree. Similarly, no wetlands for minor subdivisions, a copy of protective covenants. Those were both listed as not applicable, as were a Highlands exemption. We do not disagree with any of that. On page 3 of our report, we did ask the applicant to submit site photographs. They have not been submitted.
Which I have, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm not sure what they're really going to show. I do have some I can submit for the record, but again, I'm not really sure what it's depicting. I have pictures of each of the 3 houses on the 3 lots and the contiguous lot line in the rear, which just looks like trees and fence, so. if you
Okay.
have them, should you want
It's a submission requirement on our checklist.
So you'll have them for testimony then?
We could this evening,
Okay.
sure.
All right.
Okay. Moving along now, for Form 4 or Checklist Form 4, minor subdivision. We have similarly, the name of the proposed subdivision, applicant has indicated non-applicable. The name of adjacent owners and adjacent subdivisions, locations and dimensions and profiles of proposed streets, they're indicated as not applicable. We do not disagree. There is a requirement where a waiver is requested for the following. Item 5 on Form 4, space for signatures for the chairman and the secretary of the board. Location of natural features, woodland, streams, etc. Existing and proposed topographic contours, location with them any abutting streets, existing and proposed storm drainage. The applicant requests a waiver. We do not object. Moving on now to page 4, there were a number of items: soil erosion and sediment control plan, location of any required dedication, location, design of fences, walls, sidewalks, etc. Location and description of trees, reforestation, landscaping, construction details, traffic study, and environmental impact study. Applicant has indicated that those are all non-applicable, and we do not disagree.
Okay.
So that is where we have it so far.
All right. There are a number of waivers identified here. So any motions from the board members to accept the waivers as presented?
Mr. Chairman, a motion to accept the waivers as described heretofore.
Okay. And do we have a second?
Second, Dadich.
Okay. I think with 3 of us, we'll just say all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The waivers are accepted,
Thank you.
and the application is complete. Please continue.
Thank you. So all I can do very briefly, Mr. Chairman, is call our first and only witness, Mr. John Ridd. As indicated, he's a scrivener of record, and he can tell you more in surveying parlance exactly what that lot area line confusion was, how it's being corrected, and the entirety of this application, which is development-free. If you don't mind coming on up. We can certainly circulate and mark these site photos during Mr. Ridd's testimony as needed.
Do you need him sworn in?
Yes.
Okay.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Name and address for the record, please. Please spell your last.
John Riss, 1109 Monroe Drive, Stewartsville, New Jersey.
Can you
So
please,
briefly for the benefit of-
sorry, Larry, can you please spell your last name?
RITT.
Thank you, sorry.
The benefit of the board, John, your background and credentials and licensing in the field of...
I'm a
land
licensed New
surveying?
Jersey surveyor. I've been surveying since 2004 is when I was licensed. Graduate of NJIT and West Virginia University of Civil Engineering and Civil Engineering Technology. I've owned James P. Dede Surveyors since 2007.
Okay. Any questions for the witness? All right. Witness is acceptable. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, and I think, counsel, he's only going to be showing you this evening what's on file with the board. If anything's different,
Okay.
it's marked up, we'll mark it for the board, and we'll leave it this evening as an exhibit. But if you could walk the board briefly through what I tried to explain in my progress to the lot line issue, we'll be able to do here this evening.
Okay, basically, what happened was in 1938, it was a map eventually got filed in early 1950 as file map 1346. We were part of the mother tract of this, and there just was an error. There was an error in the map when they extracted the whole subdivision out of this piece. And when they wrote the deed for the remainder lot, which is lot 53, there was an error, and it just overlapped it. So what we did is when we surveyed out the additional lots, lot 54 and lot 76, we, on these two, I guess you have all these exhibits, everyone has these. We showed where the overlap was, the area of questionable title, and we decided where we would, cut the lots and give away land to each lot.
And as I brought it down, it's a narrow strip, I think it's about 8 feet and change in width, running throughout the
Yes.
linear parallel with the lot
The
line.
southerly line of our lot, which is the main lot, which is lot 53, and then the northerly lot of 54 and 76.
No new development proposed?
Not that I know of, no.
No construction of any kind?
No,
No new setbacks or encroachments being created by way of this 8-foot jog of the lot line?
no.
That's all we have.
All right. And the existing chain link fence then is in the appropriate location. Is that my understanding?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Any
Seems
other?
like it's the line of possession, what they believe to be the original intent of where they needed that line,
Mhm.
but they just made a mistake with the numbers, and it brought the line over that about 8 feet.
Okay.
So I'm just confused. On your blow up there of the area of question on the top of each page, particularly in the one between 54 and 53, it says area to be acquired by lot 54, that 8-foot strip from lot 53. So is lot 54 getting larger, area to be acquired by 54? So
54 will
all
be
right.
getting.
So what I'm confused on, you see the boundary between
Yes.
76 and 54?
Right.
It's 212 feet, 212.53 feet long. And just a point of clarification, I'm just looking for, on the tax map, which is correctly shown, or the tax map shows it's 212 feet as well?
Yes.
Why are the numbers the same? Shouldn't it be a shorter number on the tax map?
Well, no, it's an overlap, because this deed and the tax map believe that's 21253.
Okay, so 53 's the
Yes, but
deed.
when you come down, the lot above it, the larger lot, overlaps it.
Okay.
So that's what we're rectifying, is the
Okay.
large lot
Okay,
going
so the
into.
tax map followed the
Yeah,
53s.
you know what it is? The tax map actually copies or follows when the file map was created, the whole bottom part.
Okay.
That's where they got their numbers when they created the tax map.
Okay.
But if you survey the large lot above, and survey the ones below, the lot lines from the one above is south into the,
So I just wanted to follow up on that. So the meets and bounds shown on your maps that you have in front of you are the corrected meets and bounds, the correct meets and bounds?
yes, and they're also the meets and bounds by each one of these smaller lots, 54 and 76.
All right.
We held those as true because of the file map and also the tax map.
Okay. So 54 and 76, their boundaries do not change on their,
Per deed, it does not. You're correct. We'll be doing a new deed
for 53,
for the big one, yes,
Yeah.
53.
and their boundaries are being adjusted accordingly.
Yes.
Are you intending to file the map along with the deed, or are you just going to be doing the deed?
It's not really a minor subdivision or a major, so we'll be doing it by deed.
Deed was,
Okay, you
effectively,
can.
deed was the plan.
Okay. That's all I have. And the fence is in the right spot then?
Yeah, it seems like that was the intent of the owner when he built this whole subdivision and cut all these lots out.
Right.
That's how he laid it out.
It was good defense, right?
So it's really just that both people have a claim to this part of the
Yeah,
land?
true.
Okay.
Since it's common owner,
Mhm.
I mean, he owns all these lots. until he just sold, he's just sold 54 earlier. This is the best time to rectify an error.
Sure.
So
This
when they
became
sell
an
off the
easy time
big
to
one,
do it, yeah.
when they sell off the big one, you'll have a correct number and a correct deed, and all the deeds will match, and everyone will be way up.
Mr. Weissner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back again to our report of July 5th. We have a bulk chart on page 4 that continues on to 5 and 6. Before we get into the actual issues, was brought to our attention just now that we have it listed as an R3 zone where it's really an R4 zone. Is that correct?
I believe so. R4 sounds right to me.
I did no bulk calculations, the engineer did.
Okay. So there was some question whether our indication of R3 was correct, which would have meant the bulk chart was incorrect, or vice versa. Turns out it's an R4, not an R3. I just, this moment, checked the bulk requirements, and the bulk requirements in the chart are R4 requirements. So you can disregard the type, or disregard the R3, but keep in your mind the zoning chart. That's correct. So, there are no variances required. There are a number of statistics, requirements under the, zoning for R4 that have not been, submitted. We have them as undetermined in our chart. And we had hoped that the applicant would have given us that information so we could have completed our report and made it nice and clean. That didn't happen. So I leave it to you. The applicant has said there's no variances required. I leave it to the committee here to rule as you see fit.
Well, if I may add one thing, Mr. Chairman. Our engineer, who was working in concert with Mr. Ritt, populated for me today your bulk table. Now, I want to say it's respectfully irrelevant in the sense that it's a variance-free application, and the residue lot is about 15 times the size of the zone requirement, give or take. It's still at over 90,000 square feet, so it's completely relief-free. What I can certainly do, Mr. Chairman, is if the board would like to see it, I can have our engineer populate this chart on Mr. Weiser's report. I can submit it to Mr. Lagana's office, and the board engineer. You can confirm that, in fact, this is more than variance-free. It's a net change of 0, and in fact, conditions are improving because the smaller lots are increasing nominally in size. If the board feels like they would like that as a condition of the approval, we're more than glad to do that.
Well, that would be acceptable. And I mean, at the end of the day, these are variances. If they're not recorded, then they could come back to bite you. So if you don't think they're relevant, then,
Well, there are no variances.
Yeah.
This is a fully
And-
conforming lot line adjustment.
yeah, and so as you said, there's no variances. If we find out later that there were variances needed, then that's where the problems come in. So,
Right.
Well, he would have to come back before
We
the
have to come
board.
back on notice on an application. in
Mhm.
any case, yeah.
Correct.
yeah,
So this would be a confirmatory submission administratively that the applicant would be glad to do after the fact.
I have no problem with that, Mr. Chairman.
okay.
Again, understanding that if it's conforming, then we can proceed as we are proceeding this evening. And
Okay.
if there are variances that are ultimately called out, then council and I will have a different discussion.
We'll go ahead with that.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, any members of the committee have any other questions to add? Okay,
The only comment I had was, council, the affidavit of service and publication, was that submitted to?
It was. It
Okay.
was. Yeah, even with the conforming minor, we did submit that to the.
Understanding,
Yeah.
just so the board understands, for purposes of, the public, I know there doesn't have to be notice, if the board feels
Yeah.
more comfortable, council, where the belt is suspended on this one, and we do have the,
I was doing like 10 notices that day, this one just made it from the list. I think what happened, Dan, is the truth.
understood.
And then I regretted it on Saturday when I was talking to the neighbor, I said, I didn't notice.
Yeah. Understood, thank you, that's all I had.
all right,
Thank you.
great. Is there anything else you'd like to add to your
That is all.
application?
I want to thank you for your time again this evening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then with that said, I'll accept a motion from members of the committee.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Mealy.
a motion to approve application number 22.528, Aaron's, Martins, Johansson, 2 Thompson Road, 1 Thompson Road, 156 Red Gate Road, Block 435, lots 53, 54, and 76, minor site plan, for a lot line adjustment and condition as enumerated with respect to,
With respect to the,
Bulk variance table.
thank you.
okay, I agree.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mr. Mealy. Do we have a second?
Second, Dadich.
Okay. Haley, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Mr. Deech?
Yes.
Mr. Mealy?
Yes,
Chairman Von Aiken?
Yes. Okay. Application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
See you soon. You have one of the best board attorneys around.
Oh.
I just gotta tell you that.
Stop, Larry.
Now you gotta take him out the
You gotta put it on the record, never mind. She's
As
friends
soon as
already.
it goes off the record.
so moved.
All right. Any objections? Okay. We are adjourned then. Thank you, everyone. All right.
I know we're up north, but would it be impermissible for me to say go Eagles?